Here's a question you may never have been encouraged to ask. Who actually wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Open your Bible and the answer seems obvious. The Gospel according to Matthew, the Gospel according to Mark, the Gospel according to Luke, the Gospel according to John. There's something interesting about these titles. The Gospel narratives themselves never identify their authors by those names. Matthew never opens by saying, "My name is Matthew and this is my account of Jesus." Mark doesn't say, "I am Mark." Luke begins by addressing someone named Theophilus and by addressing someone named and tells us that others have already written accounts before him. But the author never introduces himself as Luke. And John refers mysteriously to the disciple whom Jesus loved. But the text never simply says, "My name is John, son of Zebedee, and I wrote this gospel." So what are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? They are what scholars call traditional authorial attributions. The writings themselves are formally anonymous. The names become associated with them by early Christian tradition. And that distinction is important. There's a word called pseudepigraphy, writings that falsely attributed to someone. But that isn't quite right description for what happened with the Gospels. Why? Because the Gospel writers don't appear to be pretending to be Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. They don't name themselves at all. Someone else associated with these names associated these names with the writers. That is anonymous authorship, followed by traditional attribution. And here's where this gets even more interesting. The titles don't simply say Matthew, they say the Gospel according to Matthew. Greek Keta Matthew, Gospel according to Matthew. That little word keta, according to, is worth noticing, because perhaps we've been reading these books as signed eyewitness testimonies when the texts themselves never actually make that claim. That doesn't automatically make the Gospels false. It doesn't mean they have no historical value, and it doesn't mean that everything traditionally associated with their authorship is wrong. It simply means we should distinguish between what the text actually says and what later tradition tells us about the text. And those aren't always the same. So the next time you open your Bible and see Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, remember that those names are part of the tradition surrounding the Gospels. The stories themselves are anonymous. And maybe that leaves us with a better question than, who does tradition say wrote this? Maybe we should say, what does this text actually say? Read the scriptures for yourself, ask honest questions, seek truth with humility, because truth has nothing to fear from careful study.